Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Industry Perspectives. I'm your host, Ainsley Bowden, and today I'm following up with Chief Operating Officer of Able Gamers, Steven Spohn. Now, when we spoke a few months ago, Steven and his crew were on the campaign trail to reach their $1 million fundraising goal, and they have now hit that as of just a couple of weeks ago. So I wanted to follow up with Steven and see what that journey was like, what Able Gamers is going to be able to do with these donations from around the community, and what's next for them as an organization going into 2022. Let's get to it. So we are live back with Mr. Steve Spohn himself. How you been, sir?
Life has been pretty good recently, I have to say.
That's always nice to hear. Yeah, and that's part of why we're actually getting back together as well. So
Yeah.
we were just joking prior to hitting go live here that it feels like we just spoke, as you said. But that was the end of May, so yeah, it's been over 3 months already, which is hard to fathom.
Time just moves really quickly. I don't even know where it's going anymore.
No doubt. But I actually went back and looked at that video when we last chatted, and you were on the road to your $1 million goal at the time, and we had, or we, yeah, I was not part of it, although we did donate to the goal.
You were part of it.
But you had just passed 750,000. So it just goes to show you the progress, that you made over the last 3 months, or last several weeks, I should say, because you hit it a little while ago. But that's pretty amazing. So first, huge congratulations. I think it goes without saying that's a hell of an accomplishment. And so what I wanted to ask you, one of the things I wanted to ask you about with doing that is, you kind of set this goal third quarter of last year, I believe, and it was obviously a big goal for an organization like Able Gamers. This is going to be a broad question, Steve, so bear with me, but how was it accomplished? Was this really just a ton of the community coming together over time? Did you have kind of big name support and big name donors to some degree? Was it just a wealth of all of the above and just a lot of work on the team in various aspects? Like, how did you kind of bring this to fruition?
Yeah, this was a 100% grassroots effort. And, when people say, congratulations to me, I always try to be very respectful in that no one likes to have their compliment rejected. So I don't say no, but at the same time, you did not misspeak earlier when you said we all raised this together. I am just the focal point of the spear. I'm just the one that was out there raising the loudest awareness. But this was all of us all together. We're the ones, the people who donated $1 or $2 or $20. It doesn't matter. It was a community effort, one buck at a time to reach 1 million. And how we did that was by tapping into the power of the video game industry itself, the community, the lifeblood of what we love about this place. And, that to me was the best part about it. Is this wasn't an Able Gamers initiative. There was no marketing money. There was no any kind of tapping from, Able Gamers resources. This was, I put a call out on Twitter. I reached out to friends. They reached out to their friends. They reached out to their friends, and so on. And it sounds very much like a cheesy 90s commercial, but it was 100% just, every friend telling 2 other friends. And that's how you spread the good word throughout the industry. And people just kept coming to help. And I've been joking about it for quite a while now. And IGN just covered it where, it's like lighting the pyres of Gondor and calling for the riders of Rohan to come in and rescue it. And that was exactly what we did. We lit the pyres and people answered.
That's amazing. So one, that's great to hear. But I think to your point, it speaks to the power of this community. One of the things we always talk about on this show, or on this channel, I should say, is focusing on the good in the community, because there's an awful lot of it out there. And I know sometimes the industry gets a bad rap for many other reasons we don't need to discuss today, but there's a lot of good here. So it's pretty amazing, and I'm glad that we could, at least Season Gaming could play at least a very small part in that the grand scope of things.
The great thing about the whole thing is that you have no literal idea if your part was large or small or medium or anywhere in between.
Fair.
Because
That's fair.
maybe you gave $2. Maybe you didn't have $1 to give because the pandemic strapped your cash flow and you weren't able to do anything. But maybe your retweet was seen by somebody who donated $1,000. Maybe your retweet was seen by somebody who donated $5 and then donated another share of their own on Facebook, and that person donated $1 million. You don't know, and that's the thing I really tried to hammer home. And again, these all sound like cheesy sound bites, but the truth of the matter is that the butterfly effect is very real. Your actions on the world are a ripple effect of those around you. So all I did was put out a call for help, and look what it did. It raised $1 million. I didn't do that personally. I just sent out some waves into the universe and it happened. Now, that's not to belittle the work of the people that were involved here, but that is to say that we all had to chime in together. So I always discourage people from saying that their donation was small. You never know how far it was.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Very fair point and very true. So yeah, thank you for that. And I'm sure that, everyone who had a hand in this, appreciates that. So I guess the next question is, from your perspective, because I think it's hard, even for myself and for many people, to understand, right, the entire scope of what goes into your organization and what you do. I mean, we know the core of what you do for the community and for people out there, of course. But what does accomplishing something like this in broad terms allow you and the team there to do? What does this enable you to do?
Yeah, I think the problem with the general industry is that you have a couple of pictures that go viral. You have one video, you have a smiling kids on NBC, or you see, a Steve talking on Ryan Reynolds or something like that. But, there's a lot of work in between that. Some people think it's just about, handing children controllers and saying, all right, kid, go play games. But it's not. It's about hours of peer support. It's about hours of helping people be able to figure out their challenges, their barriers, figure out ways around them. It takes anywhere from 8 to 12 hours to help each individual at Able Gamers. It's not like you just pull up and you're like, I'll take a number 7 with fries. It doesn't work like that. I wish it did. It doesn't. The user research team are always out there working 8 hours a day, figuring out exactly the challenges that are in the community, in the general gaming sphere, that are keeping people with disabilities out, and how we conquer those. The engineering department constantly working on new controllers. Something that has been heartbreaking for me is doing these interviews. I've mentioned to interviewers saying, hey, did you know that we have 3 patents at Able Gamers?
I didn't know.
No, so you didn't know either, and that's now something, because it doesn't get the same play in the press that a smiling picture does. And so, IGN is not covering, Able Gamers gets the newest patents for a very cool controller. I wish they would, but they don't, and so people don't necessarily know it's part of what we do. So, from player panels where we have a bunch of people who are in the industry who are disabled, who are doing Q&A now, who are building their resumes thanks to this program at Able Gamers, and many, many more programs that we have that are just specifically set to help the industry. I wish I could tell you that we did the whole thing just by handing out different kinds of controllers, but that's not how we made this big change.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the context I was looking for, right? Because that's exactly the point. Is anyone listening to this or reading it later, it's overwhelmingly likely they're not going to have that context about what goes into the day-to-day operation outside of exactly what you said. The big bullet points, right?
Yeah.
So, as you kind of, you were working towards this goal late last year, and you were probably a few 100,000 into it at that point, if you track that out, right? Obviously, Able Gamers comes into 2021 with specific goals, even outside of this, right? This is just one thing. So, one, obviously this is a big chunk, and this will help you do certain things you just mentioned. But I mean, how's the year going otherwise for Able Gamers? I mean, last time we spoke, you were talking about expansion and a lot of good things, bringing more people on, being able to do more. I mean, has this been outside of this specifically? How the overarching success of Able Gamers and the ways you're which to help people, is that kind of on track? Have you accomplished that so far this year, do you think?
I believe so, in a number of ways. For example, Spawn Together was just one initiative that raised $1 million. Twitch gave me $1 million for Spawn Together.
That's right.
Back in or late 2020, early 2021, which I completely discounted and said, no, no, we're just going to do this the old-fashioned way. I still get angry letters from them about that. No, but and the fundraising campaigns of Able Gamers, outside of Spawn Together have been phenomenal. Where we're actually beginning to see the people just think about players with disabilities and then want to help them get into the industry or get into playing games, or they want to do something to support people with disabilities. So they come to us and they say, "Hey, my game that I just did is platinum selling, whatever it is, and now we made 20 million chicken McNuggets. Do you want 5 million?" It's like, yeah, sure, we love chicken nuggets, and that's pretty much the way that you keep having change be affected in the industry, is by people continuing to see that you're doing good work. Because at this point, we've been doing this for more than 16 years, right? So
Hmm.
if what we were doing wasn't recognized as good, if we hadn't have spent so much time carefully building our reputation as a transparent organization that is solidly built to be trusted with your money, to be trusted with your belief in us, then we would have gone away by now. And I think that longevity is really what proves to people that, okay, this is not some fly by night organization out here just to make a quick buck. This is, I mean, I know behind me it seems like a very big window, but it's actually very small. So, but it's movie magic. But no, it's great in that having the faith from the community has led us to places where we can hire key people, and there's even people that have been hired that I can't even talk about yet because we haven't even announced it. And
Sure.
these positions are going to change the future of Able Gamers, where when I'm doing this interview in a year, it's going to be, hey, we helped this many people, and hey, we were able to do this. And that's kind of the reason that I'm willing to put so much of my own personal representation behind it. Because let's face it, if Able Gamers wasn't as trustworthy as it is, then boy, if they tanked, I would have some answering to do to the public. So I am really honored to be associated with such an amazing place and such an amazing record.
Yeah, yeah, that's very fair. So, one thing I forgot to ask you last time we spoke,
Yeah.
which I wanted to touch on, was, there's other organizations doing work, in all kinds of ways
Hmm.
in the video game community,
Yeah.
whether it be accessibility or helping, veterans, or all these other kind
Hmm.
of ways. Is that a focus for you? Do you kind of narrow in on what you guys do best and kind of hone in on that, or do you have kind of like partnerships among other organizations that you guys really try to work with and broaden that level of exposure?
Yeah, the great part about our community is that we have what we're calling cross-platform support, and we're able to, reach out and help support. For example, Craig's Children's Hospital out in Denver, they have an assistive technology department where they help people in the Denver area, and we support them with a grant every single month to go buy
Awesome.
more controllers and go help more children. And we don't talk about it a lot because there's an argument to be made that you can get good press and that yay, Able Gamers is helping Craig's, but at the end of the day, like, it's not our bag. We've never been a company that's big on bragging about things. Our PR people are constantly yelling at us for doing things and not telling them about it. My PR woman right now is watching this going, yeah, he's not lying. So uh, you know, um, uh, Part of the thing that we get to do is reach out to these companies and help them. And of course, there are charities out there who are quote unquote competitors. They have to raise their own capital. We have to do ours. But there's so many good charities out there. St. Jude, Gamers Outreach, the ones that we
Yeah.
all love and adore. And, it's my honor to say that I think in the next 3 to 4 years, Able Gamers will be a household name with the big dogs. And I hope that we stay there for a long time because we have a lot of people to help with 56 million in America.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. Hearing you talk about the almost building blocks that you've put together over 16 years, and you
Yeah,
and the team, of course,
of
is
course.
it's encouraging because it's I think anything that's good and what I would call true, right? It
Yeah.
takes time.
Yep.
It's not an overnight thing. So
Nope.
it's lovely to hear that story. So you kind of touched on this a little bit already when I asked about your plans for, obviously how 2021's been going and obviously hitting this million goal. But really, do you want to touch on kind of the grand scale of what's next? You said you're getting ready to hire new people you can't announce yet and bigger things coming next year. Is there anything specific that you want to kind of call out or touch on that we can look forward to, as 2022 approaches, which by our clock will be here next week, apparently.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, no, you have to wait. You have to wait for the you have to wait for the announcements as they come out. The cool part about doing what I do is you get to work on things in secrecy until they're done, and that's sort of been one of our mantras for a long time. Is keep working on things. Iterative model they call it, where you're just making something and then you try to go make it better. I think the proudest thing for me right now is if you go to like ablegamers.org or accessible.games, you can see that the websites have improved. You can go to the Wayback Machine on Google and look that they're being updated, and that things they're looking better and they run smoother. And so sometimes I think there'll be huge announcements with a big star helping or a big company coming in and giving donations, and those are going to get press. What you're not going to get press about is Able Gamers hires new person from this state, and they used to be a doctorate at their school, and two outlets are going to cover it and everyone else is going to ignore it, and that's okay. That's the nature of the business. But really those are the kind of things that tend to make the biggest moves. So I think if you really want to know what's going on with the Able Gamers, you have to pay attention to our sources and then sort of follow up with our news. Because if you go based on IGN, we do something like twice a year. So
Yes, yes. So you know how that works. Yes.
yep, yep. There's always a new game to cover.
Yes, yes, very familiar. Yes. So very good, Steve. So I think I think for the most part, kind of touched on what I wanted to touch on regarding the $1 million goal and what
Yeah.
you've been up to over the last few months. Is there anything before we kind of close out? Anything else you want to call out while we have the audience? Anything that you want to say?
Yeah, for a lot of years, people with disabilities were very overlooked, and still today are marginalized in a lot of ways. But I like to remind people that it was within my lifetime. Now, granted, I'm a dinosaur, but it was within my lifetime that you could go to McDonald's and order chicken nuggets, and the manager could ask someone who looks like me to leave the store because the power wheelchair and the ventilator disturbed other customers. And that was within my lifetime. And
Yeah.
it's not that far ago that it's this distant memory of a time when we were brutal in Neanderthals. This was less than like 40 years ago. So I think we're going to keep seeing change in the industry. There's people out there who are angry about things like Sekiro getting easy modes, and how dare we, what I mean? How dare we add remapping to this because it's not the vision of the creator? And I think all of these things are the railings of a dying breed of people who don't want to see change. They don't want to see inclusion, and I feel like those people are slowly coming around. I got a lot of people on Twitter who argue with me, and this shouldn't be the way it is, and keep your accessibility to yourself, and yada yada. It's like while they're busy yelling, the developers are busy coming to us asking how they can make it faster that they
Yep.
include accessibility. So, I think my final word, if you're calling it that and stealing from Stephen Colbert, is my final word is just to keep fighting for things you find are right. There was a great example actually since the last time I spoke to you,
Mhm.
where Pokemon Go tried to take the distance of how far you could catch a Pokemon or visit a Pokestop in Pokemon Go by over 20% of what it was. So it was like 300 yards or less you could access it, and they tried to chop it down to something under 25. Like they wanted you to be like right there at the spot in the geography. And there was a bunch of people yelling about how this isn't fair. What if you're a child in a hospital and there's a
Mm,
Pokestop right outside? What if you're in a retirement home or a disability home and you can't reach the Charizard right outside your door because it's more than 25 feet?
sure.
That. And they basically uh, eventually pulled back and decided to leave that change alone, and to let people continue to access these things at a greater range. And the only reason they did that is because enough people added them on Twitter and sent them
Mm-hmm.
emails, and that was what changed it. So, people sometimes don't realize the kind of power they have in mass by being able to affect these companies. But I've been saying for a while now, I have an inside source at Pokemon Go who literally was telling me, hey, listen, we were in a big board meeting and they think that people are going to forget about this and stop asking for it. So every week I was on Twitter going, hey, don't forget about this. Keep talking about it. And sure enough, they decided not to make the horrible change. So,
Good.
just keep fighting. That's all I gotta say is, it may seem some days that it's not with purpose, but it always is.
Yeah. So very fair. And you're right. It feels like this is becoming a bigger conversation almost daily, which is a good thing, right? More eyes on it. In fact, I've been preaching about the beauty of Psychonauts 2, which I just 100%ed this morning, and I don't know if you saw
Nice.
or recall, but a couple weeks ago they announced they have an invincibility mode
Yep.
as part of their accessibility options, and I saw a few people out crying about that. Well, how does it consider beating the game if you can't take damage? And it's like, it doesn't detract from anyone's enjoyment of
Nope.
the game. So just
Especially like not if you understand the point of Psychonauts and
right.
like it's not a shooter game where you're out there to bash in the enemy's skull. Like
Yeah.
goodness gracious, like that's not the point of it. No, I mean having people with challenges that want to play the game in a more efficient way that's less frustrating. I mean, why don't we want people to have more fun? That's always the thesis statement to any troll that I decide to engage with on Twitter is like, why do you not want people to have more fun?
Yeah.
What is going on in your life that you want to prevent fun? And usually, if you can get them to talk about that, you can bring them around because they'd never thought about it that way before. They didn't realize they were being that level of a jerk. They knew that they were trying to stop a feature, but they never really looked at it like that. And those are usually the times. Elise and James Willem, have a character in Psychonauts too, and part of the reason that they were so honored to be in that is because of mental health and how it helps them deal and it helped other people deal with their lives. And that's what that game is all about, is helping people cope. And there was no reason for them not to have an invincibility mode. I think every game should have an easy mode, and I'm just going to keep railing about that until eventually the industry says, fine, here you go.
Feels like you're getting there again, right?
Yep.
Takes time to make meaningful change.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we're getting there. So Steve, always a pleasure talking with you. I hope we continue this streak, and I'll keep touching in with you, once in a while. But it's been a pleasure. So thank you again for coming on. Congratulations to everyone involved, with what you guys have accomplished so far this year, and definitely look forward to to what's upcoming. So now that you've teased it all and told me how to pay closer attention to these things, I'll be doing that. So.
Can't wait to come back and tell you about my next stories.
All right. So thanks again. That was Steven Spohn, head of Able Gamers. Please check out the site. Please check out their work. It's important, and we can all do a little more in that regard. Thank you.